Two icons, two coasts, and two bullets that changed music forever. In just 6 months, the reigning kings of hip-hop, Tupac Shakur and the notorious Biggie, were gunned down in public. For decades, their murders became two of the most infamous cold cases in American history, tangled in rumors, conspiracy theories, and a powerful code of silence. But this isn't just a story about a rap rivalry. It's a story about how the lines between entertainment and the streets blurred, how a deep friendship at the heart of hip-hop spiraled into a war, and how that war claimed the lives of two of music's most important voices. To understand how it all ended in bloodshed, you have to go back to the moment the war really began. November 30th, 1994, at Quad Recording Studios in Manhattan. Tupac Shakur was in New York for a trial, and he needed money to pay his lawyers. He showed up at the studio to record a verse, invited by people connected to his one-time friend, Christopher Wallace, the notorious Biggie, and his label, Bad Boy Records. As Tupac stepped into the lobby, he was ambushed by armed men, shot 5 times, and robbed of his jewelry. He miraculously survived, but something inside him broke that night. From his hospital bed, and later from a prison cell, Tupac was convinced that Biggie and his crew had set him up. It was a betrayal he would never forgive and an accusation that lit the fuse on a conflict that would end in tragedy. The feud that Tupac's shooting ignited was poured onto the gasoline of a business already soaked in gang culture. On the West Coast, Death Row Records, co-founded by the intimidating Marion Suge Knight, was more than a label, it was a fortress. Knight had deep, known ties to the mob Piru Bloods, a notorious Compton street gang. He staffed Death Row with gang members, using them for security, intimidation, and as his personal army. This wasn't some subtle connection. It was Death Row's entire identity. In that world, gang loyalty came first. So, when Tupac, desperate and in prison, signed with Death Row in 1995, he wasn't just joining a record label. He was officially aligning with the mob Piru. Meanwhile, on the East Coast, Sean Puffy Combs' Bad Boy Records was a slick, commercial machine. While it wasn't structured as a gang front in the same way, it operated in the same street ecosystem and used its own affiliations for protection. The stage was set. The two biggest labels in hip-hop were now caught up in the politics of two of the most infamous rival gangs in America, the Bloods and the Crips. The East versus West rivalry was no longer about who had the better rhymes or sold more records. It had become a real, dangerous conflict. And it now had an anthem, Tupac's vicious diss track, Hit 'Em Up, where he directly accused Biggie of the Quad Studios ambush and boasted of an affair with his wife. The war was officially on. Las Vegas, September 7th, 1996. The night started in victory. Tupac and Suge Knight were in town for a Mike Tyson fight at the MGM Grand. After Tyson's win, a member of Tupac's crew spotted Orlando Baby Lane Anderson, a member of the rival Southside Compton Crips, in the casino lobby. The beatdown that followed was fast, brutal, and all caught on hotel surveillance cameras. Tupac himself was seen throwing punches. It was a public humiliation, a show of force by Death Row and the mob Piru. It was also a fatal mistake. Hours later, Tupac was in the passenger seat of Suge Knight's black BMW, leading a long line of cars to a club. Stopped at a red light on the Vegas Strip, a white Cadillac pulled up next to them. A gunman inside opened fire, unleashing a storm of bullets into the car. Tupac was hit 4 times, in the chest, arm, and thigh. Suge Knight, who was driving, was grazed by shrapnel. 6 days later, on September 13th, 1996, Tupac Amaru Shakur died. He was 25 years old. For almost 3 decades, the case went nowhere. Investigators believed the motive was clear: retaliation for the beating of Orlando Anderson. But the street's code of silence, along with a genuine fear of Suge Knight, kept witnesses from talking. Anderson was the main suspect but was never charged. He was killed in an unrelated gang shootout in 1998. Then, in 2023, the wall of silence finally cracked. Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, Orlando Anderson's uncle and a high-ranking Southside Crip, was arrested and charged with Tupac's murder. 4 years, Keef D had been bragging in interviews and even his own memoir about being in the white Cadillac that night. He claimed he passed the gun to the backseat, where the shots were fired. Prosecutors allege Keef D was the shot caller who orchestrated the hit on his nephew's behalf. Though he may not have pulled the trigger, Keef D is the only person from that car still alive. His trial, which has been delayed to early 2026, is the first real chance for justice for Tupac Shakur. 6 months after Tupac's death, the war came for its other king. On March 9, 1997, Christopher Wallace, the notorious B.I.G., was in Los Angeles promoting his next album, prophetically titled Life After Death. After leaving a Vibe magazine party at the Peterson Automotive Museum, his two-car convoy stopped at a red light. Just like with Tupac, a car, this time a dark Chevrolet Impala, pulled up alongside Biggie's SUV. A lone gunman, described as a black man in a suit and bow tie, fired into the passenger side of the vehicle, hitting Biggie 4 times. He was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center but was pronounced dead. He was 24. The echoes of Tupac's murder were impossible to ignore. It was another drive-by, another icon killed in his prime. The main theory was that this was a direct eye for an eye retaliation. Investigations by the Lapt, most notably by a task force led by former detective Greg Kading, pointed straight back to Death Row Records. Kading's team concluded that Suge Knight, who was in jail at the time, ordered the hit from behind bars. The alleged triggerman was Wardell Poochie Faust, a mob Piru Bloods member and a known hitman for Knight. According to the theory, Knight used an intermediary to order the hit as revenge for Tupac. But just like Orlando Anderson, Poochie Faust would never stand trial. He was shot and killed in a separate conflict in 2003, and whatever he knew died with him. Biggie's murder remains officially unsolved, with no arrests ever made. So why did both cases go cold for so long? It was a toxic cocktail of fear, the unwritten street code, and serious allegations of police corruption. In Tupac's case, witnesses were either too scared to talk or, in one case, disappeared entirely. Yafu Fula, a member of Tupac's group The Outlaws, was in the car behind Tupac's and was the only witness who told police he might be able to identify an attacker. Just 2 months after Tupac died, Fula was murdered in an apartment building in New Jersey. While authorities said his death was unrelated to Tupac's, it sent a chilling message. In Los Angeles, the investigation into Biggie's murder was crippled by allegations that the corruption was coming from inside the Lapt itself. Some detectives, like Russell Poole, claimed that off-duty Lapt officers had been working security for Death Row Records and may have been involved in the murder or its cover-up to protect Suge Knight. These accusations created a fog of mistrust that paralyzed the investigation. The music industry didn't help, either. Executives seemed more interested in protecting profits than finding the truth, while many artists were afraid that speaking up would make them the next target. This wall of silence allowed conspiracies to grow and justice to be denied for years. It was only Keef D's own words, chasing fame and money through his confessions, that finally gave prosecutors the opening they needed to act in Tupac's case. The story of Tupac and Biggie is a tangled mess of friendship, money, betrayal, and violence. Even decades later, details are still surfacing. What do you think really happened? Do you believe justice will ever be served for both of them? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more deep dives into the biggest stories in music history, make sure to subscribe. The murders of Tupac Shakur and Christopher Wallace weren't just the loss of 2 incredible artists. They were the violent end of a hip-hop era. Their deaths became a grim warning about what can happen when rivalries go unchecked and when art gets tangled up with violence. The East Coast-West Coast feud, which had started as a source of creative fire, burned down into a real war that left no winners. The arrest of Dwayne Keef D. Davis offers a flicker of hope for answers in Tupac's case. But Biggie's murder remains an open wound, a symbol of justice that was never delivered. The questions still hang in the air. Will we ever know the full truth? And what lessons, if any, have we really learned? The music of Tupac and Biggie is immortal, but their stories are a somber reminder of the talent we lost and the devastating cost of a war nobody won.